Okay, so this first loading strategy is going to be a very easy introduction into load. So this is going to be something, especially even if standing is an issue, and this is going to be more for the really sensitive cases of the plantar fasciitis or foot pain. So this loading strategy, what we're going to do on our back, we really want to disengage anything proximally. So hips and up, we're trying to stay relaxed, and we're going to use the breathing as a way to stay relaxed with that. Our feet, what we want to do, good spread toes. I don't want to be gripping the mat with my toes, but all I'm going to do is kind of pull my pelvis off the ground by kind of bringing my feet down as if I'm trying to do this. And I'm going to pull my pelvis off the ground slightly, and this is going to be the starting point. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly rock to my toes slightly, so my heels are just barely off this mat, and then rock onto my heels with the balls of my feet barely off the mat. So on the inhale, I'm going to rock to my heels. On the exhale, I'm going to rock to the balls of my feet. The reason I'm exhaling is because as I exhale, it really disengages my torso here. And so as I'm moving towards the tissue I'm really trying to load, the exhale just further facilitates that tissue being kind of isolated. So inhale and exhale. If the goal here is to load this tissue, so I should be feeling the calf really working here, and I really want to bring my attention to the feet, but I can also just sit here and hold this for 60 seconds or so. And all I'm trying to do is get a good fatigue in that calf and those tissues of the foot. And so if I feel like this is a challenge, I don't have to even work on the rocking. I can just work on just holding the heels not even an inch off the wall, and I should be able to do this without a tremendous amount of shaking or trembling. So if I want to further challenge that foot and increase the load before I start some of these standing variations, pelvis is just slightly unweighted, my heels are slightly off the wall, and then I can slowly move one foot off the wall, so now all of that load is on that single foot. And again, I just hold this for 60 to 90 seconds or until I start to feel things really fatiguing or shaking. If I want to increase the load, I can also move out further. So now as I move out further, this is a little bit more of a challenge just because the vector of force is further out. And that's going to be a really good way to start to introduce some of that load to that lower tissue. So this next isometric I'm going to be discussing is more of a way for us to kind of simulate the gait pattern. So what I'm going to do is just take a normal step forward, what would normally be a normal gait pattern, and I'm going to end up with 90% of my weight on this lead leg. So of that 90% of the weight on that lead leg, I really try to unweight this heel. And basically this is a foot plank, right? Because most of our weight is distributed to the ball of the foot. And then what I'm going to end up doing, again, without trying to grip the toes too hard, I really want to kind of distribute that load through the arch. And this position right here, we're going to start with just this, okay? This is just, again, a 60 to 90 second hold. If we really want to challenge things, we can do it within that 60-second hold. We can either close our eyes or we can fix our eyes forward and move our head, which will really challenge kind of distribute that load more to the proprioceptive system or the ability of the foot to communicate to the brain, as opposed to relying on just eyesight and inner ear, which with injuries to the lower extremity, we tend to bias the eyesight and inner ear to help us balance because the input coming in from the foot is less reliable. It's just a little more fuzzy. So we really want to kind of not only integrate the load to the tissue, but we also want to improve that neurological feedback up to the brain. And by challenging the eyesight or challenging the inner ear, we can really offload a lot of that input onto that proprioceptive system. So this one leg forward, balance 90% of the weight on that lead leg, a slight bend in the knee, and this is just the balance, the foot plank that I talked about. And if we can do that for 2 or 3 rounds, then we can probably move into more of the eccentric strategies we'll cover next. So moving on to the next phase, which would be the eccentrics, it's basically calf raises, right? And so when I do this calf raise, I'm going to start with both feet on a surface here, a slight bend in the knee because I do want to bias that soleus and some of the more deep calf compartment, so I'm not going to be straight kneed like this. So I'm going to come up, use a wall or use something to help support with balance, and I'm going to slowly work my way down, and my heels are going to drop below parallel and then come up with both, and then again slowly under control drop my knees. And again, with my jeans you can't see very well, but my knees are kinked. The progression from that is come up with 2 and then slowly transition to 1 and over the course of 5 to 6 seconds, slowly lower that foot down, back up, slowly lower that foot down, and that would be a good way to start to elongate that tissue while it's under load with the eccentrics. Now, once you feel like you can do the eccentric component, then we're going to start to build up the capacity to create force. And so usually what I'll do there is I'll end up with my feet hanging off again, the stair or whatever elevated surface you have. The feet start below, and I'll also take a tennis ball or something and kind of hold it between the heels, because that will allow you to kind of, as you come up into a calf raise like this, the one thing we don't want is that heel to come out to the side like this, to where you're biasing load on the outside of the foot. But once I can do the eccentrics and not have any pain with that, then what I'll end up doing is just slowly working through controlled heel raises or calf raises here. Again, my knees are slightly bent. I don't want it to be completely straight. And with that ball between the heel, that'll make sure my distributional load is equal through that big toe knuckle and little toe knuckle. So now with these collection of stretches and some loading strategies, the important thing is finding your entry point into that load. Finding a collection of stretches that really help loosen up the tissues and make it feel better, and then finding a loading strategy that's not going to regress you real quick, but you can slowly start to progress yourself through the course of week after week until you feel like you can do things that would otherwise irritate it, like running or sport or athletics. So although there's not an easy baseline starting point of do this stretch for this amount of time, load this for this amount of time, this amount of reps, you're really going to kind of play around with it and see what your tissues will tolerate and slowly progress from there. But I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you do have any questions, shoot a comment below. You can always reach me at drdunaway@chirostrength.com. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And like I always say, don't just mend, transcend. Thanks.